Oh my goodness. Okay, let me start out first by apologizing to non-Christians because I had no idea that this much of the Christian world was on all sorts of stuff that they've been on. Okay, what I'm specifically talking about is the world of dating and the world of relationships, which also translates into just worldview. Period. Aaron and I have gone back and forth about our experiences in the dating world and stuff like that. And there's some stuff that I'm like, Aaron, bro, who are you hanging around? And he's been like, dude, Christians. And I'm like, no way. No way you're hanging around true Christians when that's your mentality. Now, I'm coming at it from the sense of most of my battles against non-Christians and atheists, agnostics, non-believers, however you want to slice the coin, has always been in the creation versus evolution debates and the validity of the Bible debates when it comes to like history, historical facts, timelines, etc., and so forth. So I have very concrete and fact-based and thought processes battles, I guess is kind of the best way to say that, with people and non-believers and non-Christians, and in dealing with them. So when it comes to like courtship and it comes to getting relationships, I kind of take a lot of those as I've dealt with other Christians who also are in these battles and in these circles, and they take those processes and attributed them to their daily lives as well. So a lot of the issues that I see in the dating world as far as Christians have nothing to do with some of the stuff that Aaron was talking about, which is why I was so confused. But anyway, Aaron posted an article on genxy.com. The link will be in the description below, called "Why Your Parents' Dating Advice Doesn't Work," and it's basically a message to us Gen Yers as to why we basically can't listen to our parents, the baby boomers, for dating advice. And it's basically saying that they're so far disconnected and they don't know that the environment that they have created. So, while everyone says look to the older generations for advice, Generation Y can't do that. And and the comments were out of control because he posted it on his private Facebook, and the comments were, they came flooding in, and it was good to get that fast of a response, but we didn't. He wrote it by himself. He did ask me to look at it before he wrote it, but I'm like, nah, bro, you just post it and I'll read it when you get it done. But he posted it, and the comments were immediately at like jaw dropping, and not the good jaw dropping. And this goes back to what I said in I think an earlier video. I'm not sure if I posted it or not, but Christians, we've got to get our act together. Seriously, we have got to get our act together. With there's coming doom, for lack of better words, that we cannot afford to have to be on some of the stuff that we're on. One person wrote saying that we just have to fix the problem and stop blaming the baby boom generation, and it's like, see that's the problem. It's the let's just fix it, let's not hurt anybody's feelings, and let's just fix it and move on. And see that's why human history always repeats itself, is because you have to attribute blame so what they did, so it doesn't happen again. And this. Let me calm down, because there's just so much, there's so many red flags going on. It's hard for me to concentrate on like one thing without going on into all the other separate tangents. But we can't continue these, ideological mentalities towards facts and figures. Okay. I'm just going to dive right into it and say, all of this talk about not only like let's not attribute blame, and let's not let's not hurt anybody's feelings, is there are some things and facts of life that we just have to deal with. And on the topic of dating and relationships, it's that, God created men one way and God created women another way. And while all Christians will, holler and scream amen to that all day long, is we have to acknowledge how and why God created men and women separately, and for what reasons. And we're not doing that. It's just like all day long. It's in the beginning he made them male and female. Then everyone's like, amen, praise the Lord, yeah, Jesus. And it's like, whoa, time out. But how and why did he make them that way? And then let's go into the fall of man and what's happened in the garden. What did God say the punishment was for this? And then, because once you get into that, then you start going into women. You can't be on this feminist stuff, and then they get quiet. And then men, you have to be responsible, and you're the one responsible for the household, despite how you feel about it. It's like, and then the men want to get quiet and like, well, that's not how I interpret that. And it's like, it doesn't matter how you interpret it. What matters is what God said. That's what matters. Doesn't matter how you feel. Doesn't matter what you think. It matters what God said. And that right there is where Christians just start going off the rails, because Christians are doing this thing where they want to not be like the world, but be like the world at the same time. That goes into all this, all these churches that are accepting homosexuality. This goes into all the churches that are accepting, boyfriends and girlfriends living together. And now I'm not going to go into a diatribe about that, because while that's not biblical, it is kind of biblical. But like nowhere in the Bible does it say man and woman can't live together. So I kind of want Christians to stop spreading that message out there, but it does give the appearance that, like if a boyfriend and girlfriend living together, clearly they're having sex, which is, outside of marriage, which is against the law, or which is against the Lord. So that part is actually true. So that's why they say it's a sin. But, acting like that's in the Bible needs to stop. So, all right, that's my diatribe on that. But moving on into more in-depth stuff, someone commented talking about how, it's not really the baby boomers' fault, and the stuff that they went in, and the stuff that they learned, that's kind of been the reason why Generation Y is going through the stuff they was going through, is because of what they learned in college. So it really wasn't their fault, because they weren't the college professors. It was the silent generationers and the GI generationers. And my argument to that is just like, okay, well, that was while those behaviors may have been taught to you, once you left college and came out here into the real world, you had to deal with non-indoctrinated GIs, non-indoctrinated silent generation, non-indoctrinated was a progressive generation, whoever came before the GIs, and because they would have been the elderly people at that point, and therefore society would have checked your behavior. But again, you guys were young, you were stupid, so I can understand why it's one of those things of, I'm just going to listen to Hendrix, man, and smoke weed. Forget the system. I'm not going to work at the factory like my dad, even though the factory is the one who built the college that you learned to rage against the machine with, and they're the ones who provide all the financial opportunities for you to establish yourself, and that's why you're able to build and live in a house for like $30,000. That's why cars cost $2,000. But again, you guys wanted to live and be free, man. Let's just go around and do whatever we want, man. That's how we do it. It's like, and then it's like, well, what's wrong with printing money, man? Everyone should deserve to be happy. It's just like, and that's why we have inflation, and now that's why houses cost $200,000 for the same size of a $5,000 house back in 1950. It's just like, just go down the line as to like what's wrong with the economy, what's wrong with the behavior of children, what's wrong with the educational system, what's wrong with the business sector, what's wrong, like just go right down the line, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And that's another baby boomer generation trait, is it's not my fault even though I'm the one who did it. It's just like, oh my gosh, man. Oh my gosh, like we've got to change this around, and bringing this back around to relationships. It's the boomers learned a lot in their decadence. I will give them that. They did learn a lot in their decadence. Unfortunately, by the time they learned, their children were already adults. A lot of boomers now are running around talking about, well, we were wrong about this, we were wrong about that, we're wrong about this. It's like, yes, like they're now admitting that what the problem is, but they're in their late 60s, they're in their mid 60s, like the young baby boom generations, like my parents, they're pushing 60, they're in their late 50s. It's just like, okay, but by the time you've now admitted that you were wrong and you messed up, your children are almost 30 or above. like we're already having kids. It's too late. Damage has been done. You can't sit here and talk about that. And it's just like, oh my goodness, man. It's, and again, it goes back to what this lady said, and like she had this rant about, you can't blame the boomers, and it's like, yes, we can, and it's like, you can't say that, okay, like let's use the analogy of burning down a house. You can't start a fire in the fireplace and not take the precautions of the fire not escaping the fireplace. You leave the house while the fire's still in the fireplace. You come back, half of the house is on fire. The neighbors are all watching. The first, few fire department or fire engines are there putting out the fire, and they're like, oh my God, we got to put the fire out, i.e., the Generation Y, like, oh, we have a problem here, our house is burning down. And then be like, well, we started a fire, but it was in the fireplace. It wasn't in the living room when we left. It's just like, did you start the fire? Well, yeah, then it's your fault. It's just like, oh, well, it's like, did you do this? No. Did you do this? No. Like, did you make sure the fire screen was closed? No. Did you put out the fire before you left to make sure that it wouldn't spread throughout the rest of the house? No. Did you remove all the flammable materials that was around the fireplace, away from the fireplace, so in case a spark flew out, it didn't catch something on fire? Well, no. Then whose fault is it? Well, okay, it is our fault, but let's not attribute blame to us. Let's just put the fire out. Well, the house is already burned down, and we have no place to stay tonight. So it's just, it's like, come on, like, just own up to it. Like, yeah, you burned the house down. It's your fault. We're not listening to you. And this is where I got to talk about Generation Y. It's like, we can't totally disregard everything that the boomers have to say, but it's a pretty high percentage. But getting back to the Christian world, the male-female dynamic has been very childish. Like the denying of how men are, the denying of how women are, the denying of what attracts men, what attracts women, and it's finally turning around. But it's turning around because Generation Y, like we have a high enough percentage of out of wedlock children running around now. So now the church is kind of like, oh, okay, now we'll admit that men are attracted to things that they look at with their eyes. Now we'll go ahead and say that to a degree women are just natural gold diggers and they want to be taken care of. Now we'll admit that, yes, a man and a woman is the best situation to raise a child. The biological man and woman are the ones who are best fit to raise a child. Now we'll admit, and it's just like, yeah, but see, the children from the out of wedlock marriages are already like 5 to 10 years old now. So we're one step behind. But that aside, the finally admitting it is still coming too late. And that's a problem, and that's just something that it's good to see it turning around, but it's still a problem and it still needs to be acknowledged so we don't repeat it again. But moving on from that topic, someone made a comment about I think it was the same person who talked about the boomers, but they made a comment saying that Christians just need to calm down and we're not like the rest of the world, and we need to wait on the Lord to provide for a spouse, because that's what the whole article was about. It was talking about we can't use the same dating tactics that the previous generations used. And again, the link is in the description box below, so you can read Aaron's analysis as to why and all this other stuff. But it really is disheartening when I keep hearing, the Lord will provide, the Lord will, like this. Let me put it in a better way, because the Lord does provide. And I know I'm going to take a whole lot of flack on that, but the Lord will provide while you work, or while you seek Him, while you actively do something that He's told you to do. And it hasn't been portrayed to my generation, because I'm still hearing it from people, mainly the women. Mainly the women are the ones who are running around talking about how, oh, the Lord will provide me with a husband, and men are running around, the Lord will provide me with a wife. But then after a while, the men are like, okay, well, what's the Lord doing? Because a pastor told me that a man has to have a job. Well, I have a full-time job, and I don't have time to date because I have a full-time job. And it's just like, well, the Lord will provide. And you got women running around who are like, I want a career, feminism. I want to be by myself, feminism. I can do everything on my own. I don't need a man, feminism. And then they come right around and they talk about all this Jesus stuff, like, oh, well, Jesus is my boyfriend and He will provide with me a husband. It's like, okay, but then when a Christ-like man, or when a Christian man comes around, the first thing out of your mouth is, oh, well, I don't like him for X, Y, and Z, or it's not going to work because of, and then it's regurgitation of all the stuff that the world is on. And and that's another thing Christians tick me off about, is this combining of the world's way of doing things with the Christian way of doing things, and then everyone trying to follow that up with, well, but God can turn the situation around. And it's like, time out. No, 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 no. Oil and water don't mix. You can't sit here and say, I want the refreshing water of the Holy Spirit, but I like the consistency and the feeling of the nasty, slick oil from the rest of society. But when the time comes, the Holy Spirit will wash off other people who are also running around in the oil, and then all will be well, thus saith the Lord. And it's like, what? Are you serious? It's just so aggravating, because we can't keep this Christian kingdom going if everyone is off doing their own thing. And everyone's off doing their own thing because of the teachings of the church and the teachings of the youth group from the What Would Jesus Do bracelet era, the late 90s, early 2000s. And, we're not being realistic about stuff. We're telling girls, always stay covered up. If you can, wear, what is it? Like wear like a potato sack around, and then let a man see you for who you are on the inside. And then the men are being taught to run around like, if one looks at a woman, below the neck, he is a sinner. And it's like, what? Oh, come on, man. But then you have all these examples out throughout the Bible where it's like, so-and-so laid eyes on so-and-so, and he immediately, fell for her, felt some type of way, and then he worked for her for 7 years in the case of Jacob and Rachel in Genesis. Or so-and-so went after so-and-so and worked for her father to do this and worked for, to do that, and, chased her around. It's just like, okay. But nobody wants to talk about those stories. It's just like eventually the women gave in. Like Rachel, when Jacob saw Rachel wasn't running around talking about, the future prophet of Jesus is my boyfriend, or the Torah is my boyfriend, or it's just like like they weren't on that. But that's what women are on now, and it's just it's ridiculous. And the funny thing is, it's like once you put Christians in the same room with each other, and Aaron has pointed this out in our own private conversations. It's like, people are too picky. People are way too picky. But see, that's because we keep thinking that the Lord will provide me with a spouse means the non-existent person that I dream about in my dreams will be the one to materialize in the vacuum of space and become my eternal spouse. So and this is terrible with women. Women are the absolute worst. And I don't care what you say about misogyny. It's the absolute fact. Women, you are the worst when it comes to being picky. And the Christian women are out of control, because it's like, I had a conversation with one of my friends at no, I'm not going to go into any detail about that, but let me say this. I was talking to a Christian girl, about a fellow Christian girl who I thought about, maybe trying to date and take out to, dinner and see what was kind of, if we could have a relationship. And her reaction to me was, well, I've talked to her about her ideas of men, and she's looking for like the perfect guy. And I was just like, well, what do you mean by that? And she was like, well, this, and this. I was like, oh, okay, because all the traits were the same. Like, he has to love the Lord. He can't even look like he sinned. If he sounds like he might cuss, then he's full of Satan. And it's just like, just down the line. And it's just like, see, and that's why she's single. It's because men don't exist like that. Or at least no man who's going to provide and protect for a family truly and put his life on the line for the safety and habitation thereof is going to act like that. I'll tell you that right now. Because see, men, we have to be told and taught that we are the leaders and the providers and protectors of our society, and the Christian community just makes it sound like the only existential threat are Muslims and these spiritual beings called demons that nobody can physically fight against except the Lord. And then when they come around, all you gotta do is run around in a circle and yell Jesus, and they'll go away. And it's like, see, it's we gotta be more realistic than that, And I'm not gonna go into all the reasons or all the side effects of that, but yeah, we've got to get this together, man, because these comments just shows that we have to be ready for when there's going to be this wave of non-Christians giving Christianity a shot, and we can't be running around talking about Jesus is my boyfriend and the Lord will materialize a woman in the vacuum of space if I just bait a male hard enough. But anyway, I'll do more videos on this. That's my video, John from the Gen XY.